Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome along to this presentation of the next EstimatorXpress update that's set to be released in the coming days or a week or two. My name is Jim Pizzi, and I'm the technical director at HBXL, and I'm mostly in charge of doing development work on EstimatorXpress. That's what I spend a lot of my time working on. So I'm going to talk you through a couple of new features that we've got coming out with this version of the software. One being that we've got a new an update to the build program and the way that that's produced, and so it's a much more automated affair now. So that's quite an exciting advancement. And then the second item is that we're now rounding resource quantities. So I'll look into that and show you how you set it up to round the way that you want to, and how that can be, that additional cost can be spread into your job. So let's start with the build program. So I'm in a job here. You can see I've got a house that's 184,000. So it's a fairly sizable job. So I will go to the build program now, and you'll notice that when you get here, it immediately looks a bit different, and it pops up this dialog. So this is the first time that I've been to the build program within this job, and you get a dialog here asking you what your preferred gang sizes is. So this is sort of a library setting. This is setting up the gang sizes that you typically use for each phase of the job. So you can scroll down and make sure that this is set up to roughly how you the gang sizes that you use, and then there's a chance to tweak it on a job by job basis. So if I were to look in, let's show you an example. So taking the masonry shell and the bricklayers, you can see I could pick a bricklayer and a mate, or a 2-in-1 gang, or a 4-in-2 gang. So I think it's going to take a long time, but let's start with a bricklayer and a mate, and we'll I'll set that as my default. If you need to, if there's a gang size that we haven't got in the list, it's just a case of going and adding it into your price book, and then it will appear in here to be selected. So I don't know, if you were to use a 3-in-1 gang, for example, or when it gets down to let me see, when it gets down to decorating, we only have a single decorator, so that can end up taking quite a long time if you're just getting a single man doing all the decorating. So you might want to enter I don't know, 3 decorators resourcing, or whatever is the way that you work, the way that you employ men in different trades at different stages of the job. So I'll click next, and then we'll look at how those selections then impact this particular job. It has subtly changed by clicking next. So you'll now see that it's showing us, for each of the build phases, it's now showing us a cost associated with it. So it's pulled out the labour cost mostly, or also subcontract quotes if you have any in. So if we look at the groundwork, you can see it's 962. If I hold my mouse over this eye, it just shows me the detail of where that cost has come from, what they're doing, and so on. And then we've got back same as on the previous page. We've got the ability to change the gang size, and this time it's then telling us, right, this is how long it should take based on your selection. So we've estimated for all these jobs, and you can see the resource is a ground worker at £22 an hour. So it calculates the total cost allowance for ground worker labour within the foundations. And it's then saying, right, okay, we're actually going to use a ground worker and mate, so divide that same cost by their hourly rate, and you end up with, you should allow 4 days for that. So it's doing that for each section. So where I changed it to a bricklayer and a mate, that's now because I've got rather a high amount for my shell, so that's then taking 59 days. So it's probably not very sensible. So if I change it to a 2-in-1 gang, that's come down to 36 days. So you can use this to play around and see the duration that is going to feed through. Let's see if there's any others, that catch the eye. 17 days for the tiling. So you could choose to use a 3-in-1 gang to cut that down. Let's see what that. Just trying to see if I can find that decoration. Yeah. So with the decoration, it's allowing 26 days. So if you did want to say, well, I'll have 2 decorators to halve it, like I say, you can either go to the price book and add in a new resource, and then it'll be there, or I can say either there's a user-defined duration or there's a user-defined rate. So if I say, okay, I've got 2 of them, so one was 23, so I'll enter in 46. So that then brings it down to 13 days. Right at the bottom here, you can see I've entered in a subcontract quote of 6,000 for landscaping. So obviously, because it doesn't really know what to do with that. So I can say, well, I'm going to allow, I don't know, 2 weeks, so 14 days for the landscaping. If I click next now, it then gives me a preview of what that means. So I can set my start date for the job, and then this is then set out based on those assumptions that we've given how long it should take. There was one more step that I completely missed. If I just go back and go to the top of this dialog, right at the top here, it's asking for a build program template. Now we're still doing a bit of work on this side and the exact naming of them, but the idea is that by the time that you get it, there will be probably 4 templates. So the one that's currently called a typical build program is our new build template. So the idea is that we'll have one for new build and one for extensions and renovations. The difference being that just the timing of structural openings. If you're doing an extension, then anything that's assigned to structural openings, you don't want to do that until the extension's on and it's watertight before you knock through to the main house. But if it's a new build, then what we call a structural opening is done as the main structure is put up. So it's just making sure that the relationship for that build phase is correct, depending on the job type. And then we will also have more sort of COVID secure options. So a build program that doesn't overlap trades on site, if that's the way that you are currently working. So just minimizing so that you don't have lots of people intermingling that shouldn't be. So it's just a longer duration and yeah, timing it so that multiple people aren't on site at the same time. So yeah, so I'm using this typical build program, which as I say is the new build one, and we'll no doubt get a slightly better name before release. Okay, so if I press finish now, and that then shows me here. So if you looked at this and say, well, 36 days for the masonry shell, that's still a bit much. Maybe I do need a bigger gang for that. And maybe I don't know whether the plastering 24 days, maybe that's a bit too much. You can go back into it. So this button at the top left, calculate new build program. I can click on that, and it will say any changes that you made yourself will be lost. That's fine. I haven't made any yet. So it'll launch it back in. I can say, right, okay. So what happens if I do a 4 and 2 gang rather than a 2 and 1? And surprise, surprise, it's half the time. What happens if I increase my plastering gang? So I could use a user defined rate there. Maybe I double the gang size there. Click max, and you can see, okay, great. That's then shrunk those right back down. So you can play around in those loops if indeed you have different gang sizes that you can utilize, or if indeed you just made a mistake and didn't set it right, you can go back in and tweak things and it will recalculate that. And similarly, if you've been to the build program and then you need to go back and do some more work on the job, then you should come back in and indeed recalculate it, or obviously do what you've done with the software up to now and manually tweak it yourself. So it's added just the build phases that are present within the job. So the ones that I've used in the estimating data that I've got. You can still add in additional build phases if there's something that you want to show, but you haven't priced for whatever reason. So let's say that there was some demolition that needed to go on. There was an existing structure, but for some reason I haven't priced it. So I could add that and press select, and it then adds it at the top here. So I can the arrows here are all setting up the relationship of what needs to finish for the next phase to start. So I can now set this demolition up to say, right, this needs to be doing first before the foundations and the drains can be done. So if you hold your mouse over demolition, you'll see there's a little dot at either end. So if I go to the blue dot on here, so I can say, right, I want to say at the end of that, drag that down to the start of foundations, and you'll see there you got a little pop up saying you're creating a new link. The predecessor, that's a word, is demolition, and the successor is foundations. So it then sets it up to say basically when demolition ends, that's when foundations can begin. And you can do the same just to set it up with drains. So yeah, that's how you can set up links between them. If you want to manually change the length of anything, so my demolition, it's by default it's 7 days. It's a little bit fiddly. So if you hold your mouse over the bar and you get that little icon, that means that you can move it. So I can move it along and it will then bring everything else with it. Or if I move my mouse to the end of the bar, you hopefully will see it's quite hard to see, particularly on my screen, that that it changes to a sort of left-right arrow. If I then hold my mouse, I can then change the length of it, make it longer or shorter. So if I set that to 12 days, and again that then moves everything else along with it. Okay. So yeah, that's the basic use of it. On the right hand side here is a side panel. So I can it's showing you a bit of detail of what the links are set up to it. And you can enter a lag if needs be on the link. You can also change the color of the bar, which is a lot easier to do than with the existing build program. You can also see the resource breakdown for that build phase. So if I just make this side panel quite large so that we can actually see what's in here. So depending on the phase that so demolition should have nothing yet because I just added that. So as you click around, you can then see the breakdown by estimating calculator and worksheet of all the data within it. And there are some filters at the top. So if you just wanted to look at the labour, for example, I can filter it to just labour, and that then shows me the labour involved in that phase of the job. So yeah, if you'd like to drill down whilst looking at the build program into the underlying information that you can drag that out and use that to look through. Okay, and then the final thing just to mention is printing of it, so that there's the print button that we've got currently is printing it more in the old style. So if I just press print, and it's just warning me that it's going to do that. So pressing print, you will see it. So that this is as it looks in the existing software. So we haven't got this new style going through to print just yet. Hopefully it will come the next couple of months. If you want to get it out looking as it does on screen, if you press the export to image button, and there are some settings as to what you do and don't want to show in that. So yeah, you can choose which of these columns you want to show. So I want to show the build phase name. That would be helpful. Do you want to show the start date column and the duration column, and then different indicators of the time scales here. So you can play with those to see whether you want them on or not, and it will save it as a PNG file, so just an image file. And yeah, so it's basically a screenshot of what you've seen. So you can then obviously take that and print that if that's the way you want to show it. So yeah, that's the current exporting options. And yeah, as I say, hopefully in a subsequent update in the next month or two, the print button will do it more in this format, so that you can see the relationships, the arrows set up. Okay, so that's the new build program. So yeah, hopefully it's a good a good step forward that it's now that you're not now having to think about it all yourself and work out how long it's going to take. So yeah, so that's that side of the update, and I can claim no part in that. That was my colleague Graham that's done all the good work on that one. And then the other side of it is the rounding of resource quantities. And this is if you've seen one of the emails from us talking about the upcoming projects, you're probably aware that these two items were coming out, but also that we're working ourselves towards a new bonus pack for Smart Scheduler, I believe it's to be called. So it's to help you get from the estimated quantities and resources to an actual, to actually what you need to order, and the sort of, the hoops that you jump through in your mind and using pen and paper and so on at the moment to transfer that information, or indeed you may just sort of start from scratch and using your experience of what you need to order and when. So that module will do things like try to help you to calculate the lengths of timber that you need to buy, based on the dimensions of the things that you've estimated. So it will, if you take roofs for example, and there's the cutting list information has been calculated within the estimating calculator, it will use that information to reschedule the timber from the meter run price to actual timber lengths that you'll be ordering. So it's going to do things like that, and it will look at the job and say, well, you've used so much paint, so I'm going to pick a larger tin or a smaller tin. So it will go through and do some sensible product substitutions within your estimate, by looking at the entirety of your job. And then it will take it through to preparing orders for that. So the first stage of it, which is what we've done so far, is the rounding of the quantities of the materials that you have in your job. So that and that's one reason for doing it, to take it so that you've got more realistic information for ordering. But the other side is that when people are using the software, particularly for very small jobs, then rounding has a large impact on the cost of the job. People have said to me in the past, this is an unrealistic price for a small job because I can't have my men there for 5 hours. I have to pay them for a day. I can't have half a skip. I need to price a full skip to this job. So this tool set allows you to deal with those smaller jobs where rounding up to sensible quantities for both your materials and your labour and your plant is going to have a high percentage impact on the price. So we get to that tool set by going to the main estimate. Whilst I'm here, actually, one other thing which I don't think is currently released. So hopefully you've seen, if you use quote templates, hopefully you've seen that there's a cost breakdown button in there. That was part of the last update. So I've now added it into the main estimate as well, so that it's now available for other types of jobs. So I believe in the current release, it's only if you use a template to create your estimate that you can use that functionality. So now that it's here, it can be used for people that either do it, build up the estimate themselves, using that when you create a job, using that bottom option. I can't for the life of me remember what the wording of it is. Or alternatively, if you use our EstimatorXpress software, and import the job in, then you can now utilize that. And it just briefly, it allows you to see a breakdown by both estimating calculator and build phase, and then to drill down into the data. So let me look at the roof windows that are scheduled. And then you can even do things like change the price of that roof window, or change it to a different one, which wouldn't be such a good idea, because the hole's going to be a certain size. But yeah, you get the idea. You can use this tool to look across the job, and make changes without having to go in and out of the individual calculators to do it. So it's a really good tool for getting an overview and making changes. And it's something that we'll pick up on some examples of when you might need to do that when we're in the rounding side. So so the button from main estimate, so one of the buttons at the top, resource quantity rounding. So this is something that you really need to do at the end of the job. It's not really worth doing it until you get to the end, because you'll be rounding up and then you'll be estimating for more things. You'll end up with non-whole numbers again. So yeah, do it at the end before you got to send out the quote, or maybe you're going to send out the quote as is, because you're happy with the price, and you're just going to do this once you've won the job, before you start ordering things, just to round things up to whole numbers. So if I'll go through the different settings and so on with you in a minute. But I just want to go on to the second tab, rules applied to the job, just to give you a feel for what's going on here. So this shows us our breakdown of all the resources within the job, arranged by type. So you can see here we've got the quantity required, and then the quantity including the allowance for wastage. So in the example of aggregate, we've got a 25% wastage allowance. So they're quite different in numbers of, what's this, bulk bag. So it's either 28.7 or 35. So it's a fair few different. And then for all the materials anyway, we've set up a sort of a rule for it, basically saying what do you want to round up to. So for a bulk bag, it's round up to the next bulk bag, and we've either set it to be to take the entire quantity for the job to round up, or in the example of cement here, we're saying round up the quantity required in each build phase, because you can't really keep it and reuse it later in the job. So yeah, we've set up some backdrop rules, but you can then override those. And if I'll just go into edit one just to show you what's going on. So this is a rule set up on this specific resource of building sand bulk bag. You will be able to set up rules either on a specific resource, or you could set up one for all aggregates, or you could set up one for all materials. Now, they're not particularly good examples, so I don't know why you would, but if you take labour, which would be a more relevant thing, you could set up a rule for all labour purchased in hours. So all of your men, and you could say round it up to the nearest day or the nearest half day. So the default is that it's going to round it up to hours. So if you wanted to, you could set up a rule on labour to say round up to a day, and it would then do that across all the different labour resources that you've used. Or you could, we'll look at an example of a rule by resource type in a bit, but so this is saying round up to each one bulk bag. Then you can select, as I say, whether you want to round for each build phase or whether you want to round the total quantity required for the job. Then you get the option of saying, I want to round the quantity including wastage or excluding wastage. So in this example, it's whether we're rounding up or up the 28.7 or the 35.9. And by default, it's set to default, which is basically take the setting from over here, and we'll play with that in a minute, just so that you can see how that impacts the additional amount to be added to rounding. And then the rounding direction is basically saying round everything up. So if I needed if instead of 28.7 it was 28.1, do you want to round that up, or do you want to, or if it's only if it's less than a half, do you want to actually round that down, as long as that's still more than the quantity that you're actually going to need for the job. So if you're just eating into a bit of your wastage, it will round down in that circumstance. And again, I'll show you an example of that just to explain exactly what that means. And then finally at the bottom is a tick box to say, I want to save this rule to the library. So do you want this to be a rule that only applies to this job, or do you want it to be one that every time I use the building sand bulk bag, this is how it's rounded? So I always want to round my bulk bag by build phase. Save that to the library, and then on every job, that's what it will do. Okay, so yeah, that's the basics of how it's rounding things, and obviously it's a decision for each resource that's been used in the job. So if I go back to main settings, okay, so this section at the top, the default rounding settings. So this is going to be applied to pretty much everything that isn't a material. So as I said, we've got a backdrop rule set up for materials. So if I were to say do not round, you can see the cost at the bottom. By the way, this is saying that at the moment it's going to add an extra 2.6k to the cost of the job. If I said do not round, it would take it down to 1.7, because it's the materials have a rule set up. This is just what happens to things that don't have a rule set up. So this is affecting labour and plant basically. So if I set that back to the total job quantity, so it's basically it's going to round up to the nearest hour for your labour resources, or day or week for your plant resources. If I were to change that quantity to quantity excluding wastage, so that 2.6 then becomes only 768. If we just go back to the to the second tab, I just want to highlight what that's doing. So if we take this sharp sand bulk bag, so you've currently allowed for 16.08 bags in your job. So this is actually taking away 3.08 because it's rounding up the quantity required rather than the quantity including wastage. So that doesn't sound very sensible, because you're going to end up with less than you actually need, because that 25% is real wastage. You know, that isn't just an allowance for something being pitched. That is, you know, you're gonna waste it. So that doesn't seem like a sensible thing to do in this scenario. So however, So if I just change it back to including wastage, and then look again, it's very unlikely that you're going to end up with 17. You know, there's a 25% allowance for wastage. It's 16.08. You're not going to need 17. So there are a couple of options here. If you said, well, I think I can get away with 15, you could just click on manual entry and type in 15. You know, that's one way of doing it. You can manually override any quantity and say this is how many I want to allow for. Alternatively, there's one more setting on here, and that one that I was mentioning about rounding down. So if it's in this example, if it's a little over 16 and it's the quantity including wastage that you're rounding, then that just allows you to round those items down. So it's got to take it down to 16. So it's got to take a few pounds off, and you'll see as you scroll through, most things are adding a bit. The odd thing is taking some away. So what's this? This block, the rule is set up to, so because we've got the blocks per square meter and they're 10 per square meter, so we're rounding to the nearest 0.1 square meter, so rounding to the nearest block. So it's then, so it says you need 5.06 square meters. With wastage, it's 5.31, so it's rounding down to 5.3. So that's yeah, and you can see on a line by line basis the cost difference made. So as you scroll down, you'll see that lots of them are quite small differences, but there is the odd one, such as the ready mixed concrete here that's having a larger effect. Which is what we're highlighting in the next section. On the main settings here, we've got significant rounding cost resources. I'll just talk about this next item first, though. Rounding position in the main estimate. So of the, what have we got here? About £1,600 that it's going to add in. We've got a couple of different options as to how that £1,600 is going to be applied to your job cost. So one option, and the way that the one that's best is it's probably going to be decided based on the type of customer quote that you're going to produce. So this top option of include the cost in existing estimating calculators and worksheets. So that basically spreads the additional cost allowance for rounding into the same places that you've used the resources in the first place. So it'll go through all these lost my mouse. All these calculators here into any of the worksheets in it, and it will add a load of sundry items in so that it can add small quantities here and there to make up the numbers. So if you're doing a quote by estimating calculator, that would be the best way to do it, because the other option is to have a new estimating calculator called what's it called? Resource rounding or something. Yeah, resource rounding, and that would add £1,600 in. So that's not a that's not going to be a good idea to show your customer that you've got something called resource rounding for £1,600. So in that instance, it would be better to use the top option, spread it around, rather than show it as a large cost item. Or the other option is indeed to have it in a single estimating calculator, which is the best way to do it if you are doing a quote by location, because it's an accurate reflection of increasing the cost for each location. So if you were doing a renovation job, for example, and in the quote template you've used the room tools to set the cost of renovation in each individual room, then that would be a better way of doing it, because it would be spreading the additional cost in against a little bit against each room that's used that particular material. And if you're doing the default of a quote by build phase, then you can kind of use either. I personally prefer the second option, just because it keeps it a little bit neater, keeps it all in one place, rather than adding lots of sundries into all the existing calculators. So yeah, I would personally say, if you're not going to be using a quote by estimator calculator, then use the bottom option. But you can play around with both and see, because it'll have other implications on the reports and so on. So yeah, you can come back and change it, and yeah, see which one works best for you. So the significant rounding costs. So this is just highlighting for you certain items from the total list, and saying, these are the ones that are having the biggest impact on getting you to £1,600. So you might want to review to see whether they're correct. So yeah, this geotextile membrane. So we've got 100 meter roll, 300 quid, and it looks like we only need 4 meters of it. So you're probably not going to charge a 100 meter roll to this customer. So I guess it's the sort of thing that either you'll buy a 100 meter roll and you'll take the other 96 meters on to use on the next job, or maybe you'd buy something that wasn't quite so large. So if it was buy something that isn't quite so large, you can go back in and find this resource in the cost breakdown and change it. But for now, I'm just gonna say edit the rule, and I just don't want to round it. So I'll charge the 4 meters to this customer, but not an entire roll. Similarly, we've got a 100 meter of this 3-core cable, and we're using 16 meters of it, including allowance for wastage. So again, it's probably something that you'll use the 16 meters. You'll take the roll with you onto the next job. So again, I could edit that and say no, I don't want to round that. With the backhoe, it's saying that we're going to need it for 11.2 days. That it's then rounding that up to 12. So in reality, you'll get it done in 11. So you can tick the manual entry, type in 11, and that'll then adjust that. Let's see what else. So the skip. Yeah, I mean this is probably a good example of when you'd want to go back and use the cost breakdown. So the reality of this is that you wouldn't get a 6-yard skip. You'd get an 8, and then it would that would fit the waste that you need in, rather than getting 2 and only having the second one a quarter full. So And again, that's something that the tools for the smart scheduler are gonna help you to do automatically. But in the meantime, yeah, you can go back and use the cost breakdown and find where that's been used in the estimate and swap it out, or probably multiple places. So yeah, that would get rid of that amount. Okay. Finally, in here, there are resources requiring a rule defining. So there are a load of resources that we either don't know what you're going to want to do with, or they could differ from job to job. So yeah, if you take the facing bricks, for example, you've allowed an allowance of 80p in there, but that could be a whole host of different bricks that you're going to use, and each one will have a slightly different order quantity that you'll need. So you'll likely have to buy them by the pallet, and the pallet size will vary based on where it's come from and who's made it. So yeah, this is something that we're saying, well, we really don't know what a sensible setting is for this. You're going to need to tell the software. So if I edit this and I'll say, well, maybe for the brick I'm going to use, there are 500 bricks on the pallet. Click OK, and that's then going to round up to 20,000 bricks. With the engineering bricks, maybe I can buy those in inches rather than pallets, because they're nice and easy to get from the builder's merchant yard. So I'll just edit that, and it will just round up the nearest brick. Let's see, and coursing bricks, yeah, similar. Just confirm I can buy them in inches. So yeah, these are things that the software just needs you to review and decide what to do with. Yeah, paint is another one that you may well say, well, it's all standard stuff, and 5 litre tin of undercoat. I'm going to use what I need for this job. I'm going to stick it in the van. I'm going to take it to the next job. So maybe you do that for all your paint, in which case we could set up a rule for decoration and say, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a rule for resource type of decoration, and I'm going to say, don't round this, because I'm just going to charge what I need to this job. So I'll add a rule for all the decoration, and I will round the total job quantity. Oh, no, I won't. Sorry, I said do not round. Do not round. Okay, and that's then not rounded any of those. Yeah, I mean, depending how accurate you want to be, you could say, well, if I need 18.72, I'm not, or if I need 3.91, I'm not going to take that small amount. So yeah, let's round this one. We'll charge the whole tin to them. Or you may just buy new tins, leave it behind, so that if they need to do touch ups, that they can. And again, yeah. Oh no, I did the wrong thing there. I edited the rule rather than so I pressed edit, and I was editing the rule on all decorations. So what I should have done was say I want to add a new rule on this one resource. So I want the gloss brilliant white 5 litre. I want to say just that resource, round it up to the nearest one. So total job quantity, round it to 1, and it will then do that. I mean, it's yeah, it's probably quicker just to tick the box and type it in, to be fair. So yeah, work through these. Roof tiles we've highlighted as things to consider, and then finally screws and fixings. And again, these are things that, you know, we've got 25 kilogram tubs of nails and you're only using 0.14 of them. So it would either be a case of, well, I'm not going to buy a 25 kilogram tub, or it's a case of, well, yes, I do, but I stick them in the van and take them to the next job. So assuming that's the way you work, then we'll do the same thing. We'll add a rule for screws and fixings and say do not round. Okay, so there are 5 resources that I still haven't set up a rule for, but it's basically going to add about 1,000 to the cost of my job now that I've been through excluding those 5 things. So if I were to say, right, add that in, it's actually forcing me to do something with those 5, because yeah. So I will, let me just set up a rule for these then. So Eaves tiles, I'm going to say I can buy those in the each. So I don't know, maybe the plain tiles I have to buy in 200s, and the others I can get in eaches. So if I click OK, well, what it's actually going to do is it's going to kick me back a step, and just say, right, this is the total cost that's going to be added. So if I click add, that's then added this resource rounding calculator to my job. That's adding that £1,083 in. If I were to go back in, it would say, oh, you've got rounding data in your job. Do you want to remove it but before continuing? So you can say yes, and it will then remove it. So you'll be back to where you started. I've taken the 1,083 out. You can come back in and you can choose to you know, put it in the other way, or change the numbers or something. So let me see if I can get back to where I was. I will add that back in, and then I'll just go to the quote and show you how that's coming through. So yeah, that's added that back in there. Okay, so yeah, the last change in this update, and it's related to the resource quantity rounding, is within the quote. So if I just come down here, apologies for the additional things that you'll see in my version of software that you might not have. I'm sure there's the odd button, an option that you don't have in your version. Okay, so let me change mine to, yeah. So I've actually got this as a quote by estimating calculator. So maybe I could show you why it's not a good idea to do it this way. So if I were to go to resource rounding, so it's actually added a section to show the customer called resource rounding, and then it's got a great big long list of all of the all the resources and £1,400, including your profit on those rounded resources. So yeah, that's why it's not a good idea to put the costs in that way if you're doing a quote by estimating calculator. So let me just change it back to a build phase one. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show you was on the right hand side here. There's a new section of estimating calculators. So by default, we have unticked, if that's the right term, the resource rounding. So it's not going to specify resource rounding in this list. So if let me go to electrical first fix, for example. So I could say, so this is showing the estimating calculators that it's showing detail for. So if you only wanted to show them the electrical sockets, I could untick everything other than electrical sockets and click apply, and then it only shows them that detail. So that is nicely, that is an option that a couple of people I think have asked for recently, saying that, you know, they don't want to show detail for most things, but they do want to show them how many electrical sockets they've allowed for in the quote. So if I were to go and turn on quantities, show quantity, so you can then highlight the quantity to them. And maybe it's second fix I need to actually see that. Let's go into second fix, and again I will remove everything but the sockets and apply that. There we go. So then it is now showing them I've allowed 27 double sockets downstairs and 19 double sockets upstairs. So yeah, it's another level of being able to turn detail on and off. So yeah, hopefully you some of you will find that to be useful. So yeah, I think that is pretty much the what we've got that's changed within this new version of EstimatorXpress. Now, as I say, if you're not watching a recording, I'm talking on the 16th of September, and there are, yeah, as you saw in the build program, there's a little bit of work just left to do to finish that off, and we're continually testing it and playing with it. And there are a couple of things that when I was preparing for this session, I noticed that weren't quite right. So I'll go back round and tweak those. So yeah, we are getting very close to finishing it off and making it available to you. So yeah, hopefully in the next few working days, we will you'll get an email from the marketing department saying that it's available for download. So yeah, we will get it to you as soon as we can. Okay, well thank you very much for your time today. Not bad timing. Seems like it's taken 59 minutes. That's a much better estimate than normal for an hour. So yeah, thank you very much, and look forward to speaking to you soon on the support line. Okay, take care. Bye bye.